Simpson, Benton County, and I'd like to introduce to you Salem Police Chief Jerry Moore and Lieutenant Greg Hastings from the Oregon State Police. I'm going to hand this over to Lieutenant Hastings to start his comments.
Thank you. Good morning. At the request of the Benton County Sheriff's Office and the Salem Police Department, the Oregon State Police has been asked to lead an investigation into last night's serious injury officers involved shooting that occurred in Benton County. Oregon State Police is being assisted in this investigation by the Benton County Major Crime Team, Kaiser Police Department, Polk County Sheriff's Office, Salem Police Department, and the Benton County District Attorney's Office. Information authorized for release indicates August 11th, about 10:25 p.m., an Albany area woman called to report that there was an armed man in her backyard in northwest Albany area. The man who the caller said she knew reportedly left in a possible stolen green 1994 Acura Integra two-door that displayed Oregon license plates. Law enforcement agencies in the area were notified, including Benton County Sheriff's Office, and the Benton County Sheriff's Office, some deputies spotted that vehicle about 8 minutes later after the call was dispatched out and attempted to stop that vehicle and attempted to elude deputies along Highway 20 in rural Benton County. At about 10:37 p.m., the driver lost control of the vehicle at the intersection of Independence Highway and Northwest Spring Hill Drive, where he abandoned the vehicle and fled on foot into a heavy brush area north of the intersection. Officers responded to the area to assist the Sheriff's Office, and they established a perimeter to try to contain and locate the suspect who was armed. The Salem Police K-9 unit responded at request to provide assistance in finding the suspect, and after arrival, the search team with the K-9 started searching in the area before midnight. The suspect emerged from the brush shortly after they began the search, and there was an encounter between that suspect and law enforcement officers. During the encounter, shots were reportedly exchanged between the suspect and law enforcement officers, and during that exchange of gunfire, Benton County Sheriff Sergeant David Peterson and Salem Police Corporal Andrew Connolly were shot. The suspect was also shot multiple times. The Salem Police Department patrol unit that was parked in the area was also hit by several rounds during the exchange of gunfire. Law enforcement officers from numerous agencies, including Benton County Sheriff's Office, Albany Police Department, Corvallis Police Department, Polk County Sheriff's Office, Lynn County Sheriff's Office, and Salem Police Department were at the scene at the time of the shooting, and Adair Fire Department personnel were also on scene to assist if needed prior to the shooting occurring. The male suspect was seriously injured and transported by air ambulance to Oregon Health Sciences University in Portland for treatment. He is expected to survive. He has been tentatively identified as a 32-year-old Hispanic male from California. His name is being withheld while we try to positively identify him, but with the use of fingerprints, we've tentatively identified him, and we're trying to obtain a photograph so we can make sure that that positive identification is made. And we also want to make sure that we make every attempt we can to try to locate any next of kin for that individual. Sergeant Peterson was seriously injured. He was transported by ground ambulance to Good Samaritan Regional Medical Center in Corvallis. He's listed in serious condition. He's been with the Sheriff's Department for 6 years, according to Sheriff Simpson. He was promoted to sergeant 9 months ago, and he also has previously worked as a reserve deputy and Marine deputy for their department. Salem Police Corporal Connolly was transported by ground ambulance to Good Samaritan Regional Medical Center also, where he was treated and released for a single gunshot wound. And he's been with their department, according to Chief Moore, for 13 years. So now, before we go into any questions, I'd like to turn it back over to Sheriff Simpson and Chief Moore for any comments that they have, and then we'll address any questions you may have.
We consider ourselves very fortunate that both Sergeant Peterson and Sergeant Connolly survived this incident, and that they will go on to have future successful careers. We also consider ourselves very fortunate to have the great collaboration with all of our different law enforcement partners, including Salem Police Department, among the many others, to, at the time of the incident and subsequent to the incident. And I think that without that great collaboration and support from those other agencies, that we would have had a much different outcome. I also want to extend my thanks to the Oregon State Police for taking on this investigation and the assistance that they've provided to us.
Well, I will only echo Sheriff Simpson's comments. I think, quite frankly, we're very lucky today to have 2 police officers alive in what could have been a very deadly situation for everyone. We too appreciate the collaboration that we get from all of our partner agencies, and I'm actually very glad that we were able to help the Sheriff's Office this evening, because I know this could have been a very bad situation for an undermanned group of individuals. So I'm glad we were there, and I'm glad our officers are okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Lieutenant, can you talk about the timing a little bit? At what point did the gunfire happen? It's past 10:37.
Well, the gunfire, it happened a little bit before midnight. After the personnel were in place, a K-9 unit was there, and they started searching the area. The shots occurred within just a few minutes after they started searching, and the suspect came out, and they encountered him there alongside the road.
And your information is that he clearly fired first, is that?
Well, the exchange of gunfire, I don't know yet in terms of who fired first, based on the information that we have at this point in time, but also the need to conduct additional interviews with some of the officers who were witnesses, involved officers, not really sure in terms of what the sequence of the firing that did occur and who it occurred from. And the number of officers, we believe that Sergeant Peterson did fire. We believe that there was a second deputy who we're not naming at this time who fired, and we still have to do additional interviews related to that deputy's involvement. And the information we also have is that the Salem Corporal Connolly, he did not fire as well.
Dre, it looks like from looking at the scene that the officers were actually on the roadway. Can you describe how far off the roadway the suspect was when he emerged from the brush?
I don't know that. I haven't been out to the scene to look at it. And based upon the descriptions and where people were at, we're not going to release what we've learned at this point yet, because we know we have other interviews to do, and those interviews will help us to try to confirm where people were positioned.
How many times was the suspect shot?
Multiple times. It hasn't been confirmed with me the number of times, but multiple is the best way to describe it right now. Yes.
A couple things. First, how many times was Sergeant Peterson shot?
How many times did he fire his weapon, or how many times was he shot?
I saw that Corporal Conley was shot once.
He was shot once, right? Sergeant Peterson was shot more than once.
More than once. Okay, and then also, how many officers were at the scene during this time?
I don't have the total count, but given the number of agencies that were there, there were, there was, definitely a good number of officers who were part of the perimeter, as well as providing scene security, and then those that went in to try to search for the suspect.
You know if drugs and alcohol were involved?
I don't know that. That would be subject to toxicology testing.
You mentioned that the person who called for help knew the suspect. You know, the relationship, how they were familiar with him.
I don't know in terms of their full relationship. We're not going to release exactly what her address is and who she is, because we have follow-up interviews to do. But based upon the initial name that was provided to us of what she knew her, it wasn't complete information for us to really positively identify him based upon that. And the fingerprints were critical, which once they were obtained at the hospital up in Portland, they were driven down to Salem to our ID services section where they ran it through APHIS, and that's where they got the tentative hit.
And was the stolen car hers, or was it stolen?
The car was stolen out of the Salem area the day before.
I didn't quite understand it. So are you saying that you got partial information in terms of his identity from her, like a first name or something?
Yes. From what I understand, there was a first name that had been provided, but we didn't have a complete name. And it was our understanding that she knew who that person was based upon the information when she originally called in.
You spoke of the woman who says she was kind of like on her way home or heading to work when she happened to come across the scene, and she believes that maybe the suspect tried to carjack her. Is that part of the investigation? Can you confirm that?
I was told that there was a woman who was driving through the area that someone may have approached her vehicle, and so we'll be following up on that information to determine if we can confirm if that was a suspect who did approach her vehicle.
Okay.
Yes.
So, did the suspect just run off the road, or did he crash into anything?
I wasn't out at the scene. I don't know if he crashed, actually struck anything. Do either of you know if he actually hit anything?
No, we don't.
Okay. It was reported to me he just lost control, may have partially or fully gone off the roadway, but to the point to where he felt it was necessary to abandon his vehicle and take off on foot and try to hide to avoid capture.
Do you know what kind of firearm he had?
He had a handgun. I don't know the make or model.
Greg, can you or Sheriff Simpson talk at all about the extent of Sergeant Peterson's injuries, where he was hit? Any details about his injuries?
What I can tell you was that they're very serious injuries, and he's actually been upgraded to serious condition right now. But they were serious enough that we were all very, very concerned about whether we were going to lose him or not.
Can you talk a little bit more about what that's like for an office or department, your rank and file, yourself, just to have this very, serious situation?
Yeah, it's interesting because it's very difficult. We don't have a very large law enforcement patrol force, and so we work at minimum staffing, and every single person is valuable in so many different ways. And Sergeant Peterson is particularly valuable and every single deputy in our sheriff's office is valuable to us, and it would be devastating to lose any single one of them. I think the last time that we lost a deputy in the sheriff's office may have been reserve deputy in the 50s, Applegate, for a reserve deputy. And we're just all so grateful that Sergeant Peterson has survived this, and we look forward to him coming back to work.
What charges would the suspect possibly face?
Well, it's tough to speculate this early what possible charges. We know that he was in possession of a stolen vehicle. We know that he was armed. We know that the person that's been tentatively identified, and we know a little bit about that individual's background, so that may warrant some charges because of past contact with law enforcement and convictions. But until we positively identify him, it would be tough to go into that arena. And then we have the obvious serious charges of those that deal with shooting at a law enforcement officer and could have resulted in one or possibly more deaths.
And what's next in the process with him? Will he be arrested once he's released?
Well, he's probably has a long road of recovery himself. He was shot multiple times. He's seriously injured, and he is expected to survive, but we're in no rush to move forward with that. We don't believe he's going to be leaving the hospital here at any time within the next few days, but we'll work with the other investigating agencies. We'll work with the district attorney's office to make the decision on what would be appropriate to do when he is ready to be released.
Greg, can you get a little bit of detail between what happened between 10:30 and midnight? We had officers surrounded the area, kind of cordoned it off. What was the?
Right. Once the person took off on foot, the officers didn't pursue after him. They made sure they maintained their position because they knew that the report was that he was armed. And then you have other officers that are starting to arrive on scene. They're taking up positions to set up a perimeter so they can maintain surveillance of the area to try to prevent any escape routes from being utilized. That takes several minutes to be able to get that done and get that coordinated, and then to get the resource that Salem Police Department provided with their canine, which is very critical and resourceful when you have people that flee on foot. So that took quite a bit of time, and then once they finally did go into the brush, then the person came out and they He encountered them, they encountered him, and within just a couple minutes, we had 2 officers who were shot. We had a suspect who was shot.
Was there any information to indicate that the, oh, I already answered my question, sorry.
Okay.
Were there other law enforcement agencies that responded to the scene besides Salem Police?
Yes, there's a list of them in the news release that we have, of the
Okay.
different agencies
Okay.
who have responded out there.
Can you talk a little bit about that collaboration though, because it seems like, I don't know if is there no K-9 in Corvallis or Albany? Salem's a long way to come down for this. And maybe the chief would like to, is this a normal protocol with your collaboration?
Well, I'd say it's pretty normal. I don't know the situation, the sheriff and I were talking before we came in. We weren't sure of the availability of the K-9s in the area. We were fortunate to be pretty fully staffed last night, so when the call came in to ask for assistance, we were able to send a pretty good group of people down here, which I'm glad we were able to do, and our K-9 officers. So I'm not sure of the availability, like I say, so, but, you know, quite frankly, we rely on each other all the time. And whether it's dogs or boats or probation officers, we're one big team really, and where we can help people out, we'll do that.
Is there any sort of verbal exchange before the shots were fired, as far as, you know, telling the suspect to drop his weapon?
There was, what exactly was said hasn't been made known to myself, and I think we would probably not go into those details given we have additional interviews to do with people who are present at the scene. And if I could just piggyback on what the chief said, I mean, you know, we may have different looking badges, different colored uniforms, but we have one mission. And we work together, and we talk about collaboration. It is so key and critical, especially in these dangerous situations, that when we call for help, when an officer calls for help, he knows his buddies are on the way and they're going to get there as quickly and as safely as they can to help them. And fortunately, you know, in an area like this, it can get there much quicker than it can in other parts of the state where your backup, you know, could be 50, 100 miles away. So I think that that was something that worked in everyone's favor, both in containing the suspect and ultimately, you know, preventing any further individuals from possibly being shot or being more seriously injured or killed during the shooting.
You know,
Yes, sir.
do you have any information on the immigration status of the suspect?
We've just tentatively identified this person. We haven't positively identified him, so we're working to.
Is Corporal Conley the K-9 handler?
No. Sorry.
That's right, that's good.
That was one answer.
Do you know anything about how long he was here for? He's from California.
No, again, because we haven't positively identified him, we'll work through those details, his background, tentatively the individual that we've identified. You know, we're learning more about that person. But once we get the picture, then we can hopefully be 100% sure.
Do you know why he was at the woman's property?
I do not. One more question?
I have one more question. The original press release said that the street address the police or the law enforcement agencies were called to was Northwest Scenic Avenue. Is it actually Northwest Scenic Drive?
Yeah, that's the general area,
Sorry.
yes. Yeah, this is about, on a straight line in the map, looks to be about 4 miles from where this ended.
About 4 miles.